Hi, if you don't already know me, I'm Laura Volpintesta, and if you already know me, hi, welcome back. I'm here to talk to you today about something about digital fashion sketching. I'm just saying hello here, but what I'm going to do is take you through a quick slideshow and show you how these sketches that I showed you at the top here, how I developed them, because you can look at the sketches, but if I can tell you about the process in some of the steps, it'll give you a lot more insight. What I wanted to say before I start that is I'm always teaching about how to be more open, how to be more free, how to be more accepting and let things flow. And yet, I've always been a very rigid about digital in design. I went to school pre-Photoshop, pre-internet, and all that. I graduated from Parsons School of Design in 1995, and I love working with hand. All of the courses I teach right now, they're all hand illustration, pencil, watercolor, textural papers, everything tactile. And I've always been kind of rejected digital drawing and digital illustration because in my classrooms and stuff, a lot of what I see looks to me very flat and cold and rigid and not, but I've been rigid in denying just no with digital stuff, right? So I'm on this journey now where I got an iPad. You probably heard when I spilled coffee all over my laptop, took it in to get it fixed, and bit the bullet, got an iPad mini, and started to explore apps. Some of my teaching colleagues and stuff, we exchanged, some app names and stuff, and I started trying them out. I was totally overwhelmed at first, which is part of why I'm gonna give you this little overview. But I also, I was overwhelmed. So I want to break down some of those tools. But the thing I found is it's such a fun challenge to take that totally digital flat thing that I always resisted and really explore and test to see how organic and natural, and how much I can recreate what I do on paper. How much can I do that with these digital apps? And I've had a lot of success. I've had a lot of fun with it. And it's actually it's invigorated my whole process by giving me new materials, giving me the portability. Because you'll see this sketch set I actually did on an airplane, 4 hours on an airplane, and I couldn't have done that so much with a little cup of water and my watercolors. So I hope you will open yourself up to some of these apps. I'll give you some recommendations. I'm probably going to be launching a little online course too where I introduce you to my favorite apps. But for now, I'd just like to tell you about this one. This one I used was Adobe Photoshop Sketch, it's called. And sometimes it even shows up as just Adobe Sketch. So, and I use a number 53 Stylist, which shows up in one of the photos. It feels big for iPad mini. I wish I'd gotten a bigger iPad, and yet I do love this portability, especially as a mom on the move, busy life. It's great to be able to create all this stuff without a big mess. I still love gouache. I still love pencils. I still love sketchbooks. But let's explore what we can do with digital illustration as well. It's a lot of fun. You have every color you can just mix in a moment, and different line weights. And the reason I'm going to do this slideshow is so that I can also really tell you, and show you a little bit of what some of the tools are. We'll go deeper with all that, but I just want you to kind of enjoy this on a quick notice. So here we go. On my tray on the plane, and if you look at the left, you can see that that's the my stylus. It looks really chunky. It's called the 53 stylus. I bought it at the Apple's. I bought it online, but you can get it at an Apple store or whatever. It's about $60. It has a silicone tip. It's kind of chunky looking, but it is kind of like a pinpoint inside. So mind you, I don't have any fancy Wacom tablets or anything like that. This is just iPad and 53 stylus, and I can do this anywhere. It's really portable, so that's so cool. Style Me Africa, it's actually by a designer named Natacha Baco, who I'll include the information here for you. In case you didn't know that I like live on Instagram. I just love Instagram. So here you can just see that I used a pencil tool to sketch out, just like I always do on paper before I sketch anything. So it's like I'm making a map, especially if there's two figures, which there are two figures here. You know, I like to map out so I can get their proportion and like the relationships of them to each other. But also this just gives me something light that I can apply all of my other colors and shapes and lines over. And the great thing is with the app, you can adjust how thick your pencil tip is at any time, and you can also adjust how dark or light it is. Actually, there's a slider. I'll show you the sliders soon. They'll be coming up in another slide. There's a slider that can take you from the thickest to the thinnest pencil, and there's also a slider that you can slide from the most or least saturated color, which basically just means if you imagine how many grains of pigment are inside, imagine like dust in a glass of water, like little pellets of color. You know, just a few is barely saturated, so that black would look gray if it's not very saturated. But if it's totally saturated, if you slide it that way, then the color would be full on black. Okay, so here I used a black pencil, but I kept it very light. Pencil, what is great about this Photoshop app and some of the other drawing apps too is that the pencil acts like a pencil. So the more you sketch over and over the same line, the pencil gets blacker and blacker and blacker. So you know, it builds up, it piles up, which is very organic and natural and takes away a feeling of flatness in your drawing. Also, this was my second step. Like I'd already mapped out. So here I made my pencil the same thickness, but I believe I made it a little more saturated, a little more black, and came in to start working out lines in my drawing. Over here, we're zoomed back out, and you can just see at the left what the toolbar looks like on this Photoshop app. So at the back, at the top of the tools there, you see that black square? That's showing where I choose my color. So if I click on that, I can choose any color I want, but right now that square is fully black. Right under that, there's a black square with a white line through it. That's your eraser tool. If you just tap on that, you can go and erase anything you want. And then below that, there's a series of tools. At the very bottom is the pencil. I'm definitely going to do a course about this. But the pen tool just gives you an even line that you can make of any thickness or color you want. Above that, there's a pen that looks like, it's a marker. And you can do various kinds of marker things with it, like the brush tip, and those are so fun. So it goes from very skinny to very thick throughout the line, which is a lot of fun to play with. Above that, you have a marker that's got like a chisel tip, which means that you can square tipped kind of feel with marker, which is a load of fun. And above that, there's a little skinny line there that's a paintbrush tool that has really squishy, thick, gooey looking kind of paints you can play with. So these are all the different kinds of textures you can play with when you're using the Adobe app. And then don't forget that those sliders, you see at the left there's a triangle with a slider above it that's blue and a circle with a slider above it. Okay, what those are is the triangle shows from thick to thin. That's where you slide to get your line weight, and above that, the circle, the slider above that goes to do saturation from like very sheer color to very saturated thick color. Here I'm zooming in just to show you how I start working out more detail in the drawing itself. Just finding the flares in the skirt, kind of counting them and placing them. Getting more definitive with this blacker line to show the real detail of, you know, the edges of the garment, and finding also the blackest things in the picture. I always like to set that out. Once I have my garment shapes all set out, what I'll usually do if I'm working on paper with paint, I'll just start laying down flat tones of color everywhere, starting with the skin. But I did a different process here. I actually drew out the print first, and I did it in black because it looked pretty black in the photo. And I know it looks really overwhelming, and even I, believe me, it's not just you, I get overwhelmed before I start. I get a little scared, a little panic, but then you just take step by step. You just draw one true thing at a time. And that's what I did until I got this print all blocked out. I work one motif at a time too. So I'll pick like the horizontal motif and just put those all in there. Then I'll look for the horizontal motif, the vertical, and put those in there, one step at a time. I zoomed this in so you could get a closer look, but then I'm going to zoom out so you can also see that. Oh, how very cool. I just found this other slide where I can actually show you, you can see where I was just getting started on the print. So I just took you back in time, but they just kind of to show you, how it's little by little, step by step. One great thing about these digital apps is you can't erasing is kind of a drag because it will go through all of your layers of stuff. So what I do is they have like a rewind or a undo feature. So you can undo one act at a time. So here I played around with, adding the designer's name and adding a frame. And then I later removed it. But at least, I got to play around with it, see how it looked. And then when I didn't like it, I took it out. And there I used, instead of a pencil tool, you can see that I used the marker tool with this medium line weight and a totally saturated pure black color. On this slide, I started adding the color into the print, okay? And again, when I work analog, I usually work with always the skin tone first. I'll tell you why later, but just so you know, here I chose to use, I believe it was the marker, the magic marker, and not the, either that or it was the paintbrush. I chose one of them. I wanted it to be a slightly sheer medium so that the black lines would still show through. Yeah, if I used paint, it would have been opaque and it would have masked out the black. I wanted the black to show through. So yeah, I used a marker. I picked the color that was like right on with what I saw in the photo. And then I laid it down into all the places where I wanted that color. And like I always do, I took a color that I was already using and used it as makeup as well. And laid that in. And I do everything that's one color all at once. So that's what I did here. I matched up my yellow with the color picker, and then I used it because I used a sheer media again, because again, I wanted all my black lines to still show through, just like it would if I were watercoloring at home. And I just laid down the yellow, so I'm just showing you parts here that's unfinished. I just think it's a helpful process. And here's the thing you'll always hear me say as well, is there isn't a right or a wrong. There isn't a rule. This is the way to do it. I just find it very helpful to have some structure to how I do things so that I can break it all down. Otherwise, I get overwhelmed before I begin. So I have my own order of steps that I almost always use because it gives me a feeling of security and control, and then I can be kind of wild and free within that security. But again, you may have approached this entirely different with different media, different tools, different outcomes. There's not one way, and I'll never tell you that there is one way. So this is a way, and you might want to try it. I hope you've already downloaded the app so that you can kind of be playing along with me, trying out some of the different tools. Right here you can see the finished flat color being laid down. So there's no shading or anything, right? Just outline, pattern, and the lines that come from the flares rolling around the skirt. And then this moment's really exciting because I took out a sheer paintbrush. I believe it was a paintbrush. I took a sheer wide color, and see how I threw some shadows down on the legs? Which gives them a lot in the arms and side of the face, under the chin. It gives starts to give some 3D. But really what excited me was doing the filling in the hair and the shorts, because whenever you find a black point on your drawing, everything else moves forward and the black recedes. So I feel like as soon as those black shorts went under the shirt, everything became more 3D than ever for me. I also used sheer black in the skirt. If you look in the skirt of the girl in the front, And see how I use that to give some 3D definition to the flares. Hopefully your screen is large enough that you can see how, yeah, I went in and added in a skin tone, but I used it kind of sheer, and I hope you can see how I didn't always, like coloring book style, I didn't always go right up to the line. Sometimes on the hair and the skin and the clothes there, you can see that there's like a little white space between the line and the color. That can really give attention to the drama and beauty of your line. And also that white can look like highlight or light on the page. Here I put down the skin tone, and then when I was done, I just felt that it was still too light in the legs. I felt like they were looking a little invisible, and I really like the skin to be really present on the page. So in the next slide, you'll see that I'll come in with more tone on the legs. On this slide, I'm going to do some scrolling so that if you are at a small phone or whatever, you'll be able to see kind of scrolling up the body and get a closer look. You know, I did some shading with my pencil line. I did some with a sheer marker. And then I added skin tone. You can see that I also added some shadows in the skirt. You know, so these are all the techniques I've always used on paper, but I'm using them here on the iPad. And you know, whether you use digital stuff or not, I hope you still got something out of it. I know it's been a long 15 minutes, but I actually spent over 3 hours doing this sketch, and I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't have the proof of looking at my clock when I was done. But I really got into the zone. I enjoyed it immensely, and now I'll have this piece forever, and I love it. I felt totally in my element. I've always loved African prints. I thought this was a beautiful picture. And I also love poses where there are more than one model because there's an interaction that takes place. There's also the layers of space where one girl's in front of the other, you know. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll join me again. I hope you will subscribe at fashionillustrationtribe.com so you can continue to receive news about webinars, classes, blog posts. You know, I don't inundate mailboxes, but I do send things out from time to time, and it's the most reliable way to stay in touch. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll get started on your own creative practice today. I recommend that Adobe app because it's just a lot of fun even if you're doodling. You do need some kind of an Adobe ID to get in, and I'm pretty sure that's anyone can set one of those up. But otherwise, there are lots of other free, no sign-in type of apps that I can recommend to you to get the same exact kind of results. So I hope you enjoy. Please comment below if you have questions. And if there's anything you want to share of your own images, I would love that you could do that. Maybe we got to find out how you can do that, whether you can upload photos somewhere. In my online classroom, you can. And I just took my $2,000 coaching package, which is still available, and it does have, you know, unique things to it like video commenting from me, etc. But I just broke it down into an a la carte kind of system right now so that if you needed a payment plan or you just wanted to taste and try out, you can actually take the courses from the Masterclass series one by one. They're $150 a piece right now, and they are accessible. You keep your access, you stream your videos, you can upload artwork, ask questions, participate in classroom community. It's going to be a blast. So you can check that out right on my homepage at worldwideweb.fashionillustrationtribe.com. And I hope you'll join the Instagram party because there's always a party there. I love Instagram. And that's where I do most of my blogging. But, you know, without an email list, if Instagram changes any of their rules, you know, we'll be out of touch. So even if you're on Instagram, please come on over to Fashion Illustration Tribe so you can get the most pertinent news about courses and webinars and free stuff and what's happening with my business. And I'm happy you joined me here today. Thank you. Mwah. Have a great day.